Today, we're diving into the mind of a true literary giant, Harold Bloom, and his incredible book, How to Read and Why. You know, in a world that's just full of noise and distraction, Bloom gives us this really powerful argument for not just why we should read, but how to do it in a way that actually strengthens who you are.
Bloom does not mess around. He kicks things off with this incredible thought, right? He's framing reading not as some cozy little hobby, but as an essential preparation for all the changes life throws at us, including, the final one. It's really about building this inner strength, a way to actually face what's coming.
And that really begs the question, doesn't it? I mean, we are drowning in content, hot takes, short videos, endless scrolling. So why on earth should we put in the effort to read something difficult, something classic? What's the actual payoff? That's the exact problem Bloom is trying to solve for us.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to break down Bloom's big ideas into 5 parts. First, we'll get a handle on what he thinks is really at stake here. Then, we'll get into the huge difference between reading for yourself versus reading for an ideology. After that, we'll look at his #1 intellectual weapon, irony. Then, we'll get super practical with his actual rules for reading. And finally, we'll uncover what he sees as the ultimate reward for doing all this work.
So let's start with that sense of urgency. Why is this so important to him? Well, it's because he sees a fundamental human skill just getting washed away in our culture.
And here it is. This is the heart of it for Bloom. The whole point of reading, for him, is to sharpen your ability to think for yourself. He basically argues that if we're going to have any shot at forming our own opinions, we have to keep reading for ourselves. In other words, if we stop reading deeply, we're at risk of just becoming parrots for other people's thoughts.
And that sets up what he sees as the central battle happening right now in the world of reading. It's this huge conflict between reading to find your own unique perspective versus reading just to confirm some kind of pre-approved worldview.
This really lays out the 2 different paths Bloom is talking about. Over on the left, you've got reading for an ideology. He was really critical of what he called cultural poetics, this trend of reducing great books to just historical artifacts or political talking points. This leads to what he called cant, which is basically just the unthinking, recycled jargon of a group. But on the right, that's the path he wants us on, reading to form your own judgments, to get ready for life's changes, and to find what really, truly connects with you.
And here's his advice, straight from the source. He's saying, don't go looking for what you think you're supposed to find in a book. Look for what grabs you, what challenges you, what comes near. That personal connection, that's the real starting point for genuine understanding. It's an active process of weighing and considering, not just sitting back and accepting.
Okay, so if we're supposed to find this deep personal connection, how do we protect our own thoughts from all the noise? To build that independent judgment, Bloom says we need a very specific tool in our mental toolbox. And for him, that tool is irony, but probably not the way you're thinking of it.
This is so crucial to get right. For Bloom, irony is not just sarcasm. It's a really high-level way of thinking. It's the mental muscle to hold 2 completely opposite ideas in your head at the same time, without immediately jumping to an easy answer. The greatest literature is just packed with these collisions, and you need a sense of irony to even begin to get what's going on.
And here's the payoff, right? If you can develop this ironic way of thinking, it becomes your best defense against simplistic black and white arguments. Bloom says it will clear your mind of the cant of the ideologues. It's like a built-in filter that lets you see all the messy, complicated stuff that ideologues always try to smooth over. It's how you learn to see with your own eyes.
So this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do it? This brings us to Bloom's very practical framework. He lays out a set of principles that really anyone can use to read more deeply and authentically. So here's his toolkit. First, clear your mind of cant. Use that tool of irony we just talked about. Second, listen with the inner ear. That just means slow down. Hear what's being implied, what's hiding between the lines. Third, and I know this one might sound a little old-fashioned, memorize. Bloom was serious about this. He said that to truly own a great piece of writing, you have to commit it to memory so it literally becomes a part of you. And finally, judge for yourself. Great writers almost never give you easy moral answers, and we shouldn't either. The final call is yours to make. Now, you gotta understand, following these rules isn't always gonna lead to a happy, cheerful place. Bloom loved to quote the writer Chekhov on this. Great literature doesn't always offer comfort. It forces us to look at hard truths about life and about ourselves. And yeah, sometimes those truths can be pretty tough to swallow.
But here's the incredible twist. Even in that despair, even when you're facing the most difficult truths, Bloom finds something deeply, profoundly good.
He argues that the wisdom you gain from that kind of honest encounter is itself a form of the good. This is exactly why we should read these tough books, not to run away from reality, but to understand it more fully, in all its darkness and all its light.
And that brings us to the grand finale. What's the whole point? If it's not about feeling good all the time or just confirming what we already believe, then what is the ultimate goal of all this tough, effortful reading?
At the end of the day, here's what it's all about. The goal isn't just to pile up facts or to sound smart at a party. It is, in Bloom's amazing phrase, to renew and augment the self. It's about strengthening your own consciousness, deepening your own individuality. The final reward is simply becoming more fully yourself.
Bloom leaves us with this powerful piece of ancient wisdom. The work of reading deeply, of building up the self, it's never really done. It's a lifelong project. We might not ever complete it, but the task is so fundamental to being human that we're not really free to just walk away from it. It's a challenge for sure, but it's also an invitation to a much richer and much deeper life. Thanks for tuning in.